Dr. Sarah Mitchell had always hated the basement levels of Mercy Hill Hospital. There was something about the fluorescent lights down there, how they flickered with a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate, like Morse code from some desperate source. But tonight, duty called. And duty didn't care about her discomfort. The hospital's color coding system was efficient, she had to admit. Every patient wore a wristband. Green for the living, yellow for critical condition, blue for discharge ready, and red. Red was reserved for the deceased. Bodies, waiting in the morgue. Bodies that had stopped fighting. It was 11:47 p.m. when the call came through her pager. Dr. Mitchell, we need surgical supplies from storage B3. Dr. Reeves has an emergency case coming in estimated 10 minutes. Sarah sighed, closing the patient chart she'd been reviewing. Copy that. On my way. The hospital transformed after midnight. The daytime chaos of visitors, crying children, and rolling gurneys gave way to an eerie stillness. Her footsteps echoed too loudly in the empty corridors. Somewhere distant, a machine beeped its monotonous song. She reached the elevator bank and pressed the down button. The old mechanism groaned to life, somewhere in the shaft above her. Mercy Hill had been built in 1923, and these elevators seemed original to the construction, slow, temperamental, and prone to getting stuck between floors. Ding. The doors slid open with a metallic scrape. A woman stood inside. Sarah started slightly. She hadn't expected anyone. The woman appeared to be in her 50s, wearing a faded hospital gown and paper slippers. Her gray-streaked hair hung limp around her shoulders, and her skin had that particular pallor that came from too many weeks away from sunlight. Going down? Sarah asked with a professional smile, stepping inside. The woman didn't respond. She stood in the corner, staring at the elevator panel, with an intensity that seemed excessive for the simple array of buttons. Sarah pressed B3 and waited for the woman to select her floor. The woman didn't move. We never enter. Which floor do you need? Sarah prompted gently. Still nothing. The woman's eyes remained fixed on the buttons, unblinking. Sarah felt a small prickle of unease. Long-term patients sometimes developed odd behaviors. The psychological toll of extended hospitalization could manifest in strange ways. The hospital had a policy allowing ambulatory patients to walk the corridors during evening hours for exercise and mental health, as long as they returned to their rooms by 10 p.m. It was well past 10 now. Are you feeling all right? Sarah tried again. Do you need me to escort you back to your room? The woman's lips moved slightly, but no sound emerged. Her hands, Sarah noticed, were clenched at her sides, knuckles white. The elevator shuddered and began its descent. Sarah watched the floor. Numbers illuminate and fade. 7, 6, 5. The machinery groaned around them, and somewhere in the walls, pipes clanked and hissed. 4, 3. Sarah's mind wandered to the surgery she'd performed 2 nights ago. A routine appendectomy that had gone catastrophically wrong. The patient had been stable when they'd wheeled her to recovery, but sometime around 3 a.m., her vitals had crashed. Internal bleeding they'd somehow missed. By the time the code team arrived, it was too late. Margaret Chen, 53 years old, mother of 2. Sarah had signed the death certificate herself, hands trembling slightly as she filled out the forms. It had been her first patient loss in 3 years. 1, B, 1. The elevator continued past the first basement level. Sarah's hospital offered extensive underground facilities, storage, maintenance, the morgue. Old psychiatric wards from decades past that now sat empty and locked. B, 2. Almost there. Sarah shifted her weight, eager to grab the supplies and return to the world above. She glanced at the woman again. Still motionless. Still staring. B3. Ding. The doors began to slide open. Sarah stepped toward the exit. ready to leave the uncomfortable silence behind. Then she saw him. At the far end of the basement corridor, emerging from the shadows near the morgue entrance, a man lurched forward. His gait was uneven, dragging his left leg behind him. His hospital gown hung open in the back, and his bare feet slapped wetly against the linoleum. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. In the dim basement lighting, she could see his wristband clearly. Red. Her mind screamed the impossibility even as her eyes confirmed it. The man. From her surgery. The appendectomy. No, wait. That had been a woman. But there had been another patient yesterday. Trauma case. Motorcycle accident. Massive head injury. She'd assisted Dr. Reeves in the surgery, but the damage had been too severe. Time of death, 2:17 a.m. This was him, Thomas Garrett, 41 years old, and he was walking. Sarah's hand shot out and slammed the door close button. Once, twice, 3 times. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Come on, come on, come on," she whispered. The man continued his jerking approach, one arm outstretched. His mouth hung open, and even from this distance, Sarah could see the unnatural angle of his neck, the wound dressing covering half his skull. The doors began to close. Slowly, so slowly. The man was 20 feet away. 15. "Wait!" The woman in the elevator spoke for the first time, her voice sharp and angry. She lunged toward the control panel. "No." Sarah blocked her with her body, keeping her finger pressed hard on the close button. 10 feet. The doors were halfway closed. The man raised his working arm higher, reaching. 5 feet. The woman grabbed Sarah's shoulder, trying to pull her away from the buttons. "What are you doing? He needs help. Let him in." "He's dead," Sarah shouted, shoving the woman back. "Can't you see his wristband? He's dead." 3 feet. The doors sealed shut with a final metallic click. A split second later, something heavy thudded against them from the outside. The entire elevator shuddered. Sarah stabbed the button for the first floor, her hands shaking so violently she could barely coordinate her movements. The elevator groaned and began to rise. Thud, thud, thud. The pounding continued even as they ascended, as if the thing outside was climbing the shaft after them. "What is wrong with you?" The woman's voice cut through Sarah's panic. "That man needed the elevator. You just left him down there. Didn't you see his wristband?" Sarah gasped, turning to face her. "It was red. Red. He died yesterday. I was in the surgery. I watched Dr. Reeves call the time of death. Thomas Garrett. Motorcycle crash. Massive cerebral hemorrhage. He's supposed to be in the morgue." The woman's expression shifted. Something dark and knowing sliding across her features. "His wristband," she said slowly. "You saw his red wristband." "Yes, red means deceased. He shouldn't be walking. He shouldn't be." Sarah's voice cracked. "This isn't possible." The elevator climbed past B2. B1. The pounding had stopped, leaving only the mechanical grinding of the ancient lift mechanism. "Red wristbands," the woman mused, almost to herself. "You know what they mean. You understand the system." "Of course I understand it. I'm a doctor. I'm the one who—" Sarah stopped, a new horror dawning. "I'm the one who put his wristband on." The woman smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Then you know what the colors mean. You know what they signify." She raised her right arm, slowly, deliberately, turning her wrist toward the elevator's harsh lighting. The band circling her wrist was red, not the faded red of old fabric, not pink or coral or rust. Deep, unmistakable crimson. Sarah's back hit the elevator wall. "No. No. That's not Margaret Chen," the woman said softly. 53 years old. Appendectomy. That went wrong. You signed my death certificate 2 nights ago. Dr. Mitchell. The elevator reached the first floor. Ding. The doors opened onto the main hospital corridor. Bright lights. The distant murmur of voices from the nurses' station. The normal world. Sarah stumbled backward out of the elevator, her eyes locked on the woman on Margaret Chen's smiling face. "Do you like it?" Margaret asked, stepping forward. The elevator doors began to close behind her. "Do you like our little color system? It's very efficient, isn't it? Everyone knows exactly where they stand." "You're not real," Sarah whispered. "This is stress. I haven't been sleeping. I'm hallucinating." Margaret tilted her head, her smile widening. "Is that what you tell yourself about the mistakes? That they're not real? That they don't count if you're tired?" The elevator doors sealed shut with Margaret still inside. The number display above showed it descending again. B1, B2, B3. Sarah stood frozen in the corridor, her breath coming in short gasps. A nurse emerged from a patient room down the hall, noticed her, and waved. "Dr. Mitchell? Did you get the supplies? Dr. Reeves is ready to start." "The supplies." Sarah looked down at her empty hands. She'd never made it to the storage room. Behind her, the elevator dinged again. The doors slid open. Empty. Completely empty. Sarah forced herself to breathe. Forced herself to think. Hallucination. Stress-induced hallucination. She needed sleep. Maybe she needed to talk to someone. The hospital offered counseling for staff dealing with patient loss. She stepped back into the elevator and pressed B3 again. The descent felt longer this time. The lights flickered. The cables creaked. Sarah watched the floor numbers count down, her hand hovering near the emergency stop button. B3. Ding. The corridor was empty. No lurching figure. No impossibilities. Just dim lighting and storage room doors. Sarah walked quickly to B3 supply, unlocked it with her keycard, and gathered the materials Dr. Reeves needed. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her breathing had steadied. Everything was fine. Everything was normal. She was pulling the door closed when she noticed the footprints. Wet footprints, leading from the direction of the morgue, stopping exactly where the elevator doors had been. Sarah ran. She didn't wait for the elevator. She found the stairwell and climbed, her footsteps echoing in the concrete shaft. Up and up, past basement levels and ground floor and first floor, not stopping until she burst through the door on the 7th floor, gasping and sweating. The surgical wing, bright lights, warm air, living people. Dr. Reeves looked up from his pre-op preparations. "Mitchell, finally. Thought you got lost down there. You look terrible." I'm fine," Sarah managed. "Here are the supplies." She set them down with shaking hands. "You sure you're okay? You're white as a sheet." "Just tired. Long shift." Dr. Reeves studied her for a moment, then nodded. Sarah walked to the break room and poured coffee she wouldn't drink. Through the window, she could see the city lights sprawling below, proof of the normal world continuing its normal existence. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass, pale, exhausted, haunted, and standing directly behind her, also reflected in the glass, was Margaret Chen. Sarah spun around. Empty room. She turned back to the window. The reflection showed only herself now, but on the break room table, arranged in a pattern she hadn't left them, were 3 wristbands, all of them red. Sarah's pager beeped. "Dr. Reeves, ready for surgery." She left the break room without looking back, without touching the wristbands, without acknowledging what she'd seen. Some things, she was learning, were easier to survive if you simply didn't look directly at them. The hospital's color system was efficient. Everyone knew exactly where they stood. And somewhere in the basement, the elevator dinged and dinged and dinged, its doors opening and closing on empty corridor after empty corridor, waiting patiently for its next passenger. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Tell us in the comments what the next horror story should be.